Right, ready we are for another day of Super 12 cricket. It's a big day for India. They need to get their campaign back on track. Bangladesh awaits them as the Adelaide Oval makes their debut. Before that, there's the Zimbabwe-Netherlands game also at the same venue. So this is Maruti Suzuki Presents ESPN Cricket for T20 Timeout. It's a very good morning to Robin Uthappa and Tom Moody as we get ready to watch another venue. Showcase what it's got in the World Cup. Tom, we've spoken about this before, but the Adelaide Oval, what are we expecting from this venue?
Well, again, a drop-in pitch. I'd imagine, given there's quite a number of games in Adelaide now, that there may be just a little bit of freshness to the surface, though we might see the seam bowlers enjoy it in the power play to begin with. You don't generally get a lot of turn in Adelaide on these drop-in pitches. It will bounce and have some pace. But in general, the gossip around the playing group is they enjoy playing in Adelaide.
Will we see spin play a bigger part though? At the Gabba we saw yesterday that Santner, Sodhi, Hasaranga all had a good day out of it. What about India? Should they resort to more spin than they did at Perth against South Africa?
I don't think so, no. I think what we saw at the Gabba was just a combination of a number of games that have been played there. It's a little bit drier, the surface, but I think we'll see the opposite.
I know that game's a bit later today, but India don't really have that sort of pressure or tension when they play Bangladesh, safe to say. This should be 4 points in the bag, Bangladesh and Zimbabwe to go.
Relatively safe to say. There won't be as much pressure, but...
they won't do a Pakistan.
Yeah, they won't do a Pakistan.
All right, yeah. What a way to start the day. That should get us going. Right, now we know that's the Zimbabwe-Netherlands game for our attention. We're going to pick up the conversation on that, the end of the first innings, and of course have you covered with whatever happens at the Adelaide Oval. But we thought we'd spend some time here with the opportunity to have Robin Uthappa, Tom Moody watch all these games in the World Cup. Stephen Fleming's been a regular on our show as well. He's here as well, Rise and Shine Flem. We thought we'd pick up some trends and patterns that no one knows how to observe and dissect better than you. You all set?
All set.
All right, that was quick. His internet sometimes goes off, so he might as well keep his answers to 2 words or less. But let's throw up some trends and patterns, shall we? It's the business end of the Super 12s. We have semi-finals coming up. The Adelaide Oval is hosting one of those semi-finals. So I wonder if we could make sense of what we've seen in what's been the first ever T20 World Cup in Australia. Right, let's start with bowlers. And the first point we're bringing up here is hard length is the way to go for pacers. Just looking at some of the numbers, the economy rates on length and shorter good length are in the 6 to 6.3 range. Full tosses are at about 12. That Yorkers, not a lot of Yorkers actually. And that economy rate is 3, but not seeing a lot of Yorkers this time. So let's see what those numbers tell us. Let's start with you, Tom. No surprise that that's the sort of length that's working?
No surprise to me, no. We all know that Australia generally going to have faster pitches, bouncier pitches, and I think we've seen that play out so far. So if you're occupying that sort of hard length, that a sort of 6 to 8 metre length, you're going to be splicing the batsman that's wanting to come forward. It also plays into the big square boundaries that we've seen at a number of venues. So, to me, there's that pretty much should have been it, and if it wasn't, it was a massive error in all teams planning into this World Cup.
We did say Perth for India, though. Their bowlers aren't necessarily the type that would bowl that shorter length, and with swing, they've gone about things a bit differently.
They would have to, right? I think with their new ball bowlers, they as in Bowie would like to pitch the ball a little bit further up, and Arshdeep as well, because he's getting the ball to sing quite a bit. So you'd expect that from those two fast bowlers, but Shami's been someone who's hit the deck pretty well. So has Hardik. But I think in Adelaide we might see a change in those stats because the square boundaries are far shorter and the straight boundaries are really long. So you might see a lot more full deliveries in Adelaide over the next week, the course of the week. I feel. And I think the wicket's going to be a lot more fresher in the first half, and then in the back end of the week, I think it'll get a little bit more spin friendly. So I feel like these stats might change up this week.
Yeah, the ground dynamics is something you said almost very early in the tournament, Fleming. You were very keen to see how things go. It looks like bowling teams have chosen to not go full whenever they can. Those numbers don't indicate you should be bowling too full. Are we likely to see a change, as Robbie said? And we've also not seen as many Yorkers, fair to say, in the first 10, 12 days of the Super 12s?
Yeah, it is fair to say that the stat I want to pick up is the 8.9 when it's full. I'm willing to spend a little bit more money for my opening bowlers to go full and get wickets on the back of that. So you can spend a little bit more, go for a few more, but if you get 2 or 3 wickets in that power play, that can easily be caught up later on. But yeah, the only thing that has been missing, I think, wide Yorkers for the big wide boundaries. So Robbie makes a good point about Adelaide. You've got to go full and straight because you want the ball hit down the ground rather than square, which is a lot easier. So there is quite a lot going on at these grounds. And there has been a bit on offer with the weather that's been around. It has offered a little bit more than perhaps normal in Australia, which can swing sometimes, but it's usually pretty true. So weather conditions have made it a little bit more fresh. I think the opening bowlers have enjoyed it particularly.
Yes, Robbie.
And also, I think we saw a lot less Yorkers in the first half in all of these big grounds simply because the margin of error is a little lesser here, right? But I think in Adelaide that margin of error is going to be a lot bigger. So I think we'll see a lot more Yorkers in this course of time.
Is that, in your opinion, perhaps a trick missed by teams, that they've been so reluctant to go full given the short straight boundaries and try and get the batters to hit wide, that we haven't seen the Yorkers as much, the wide Yorkers, as Flem says?
I think the wide Yorkers is a good point, and the slower wide deliveries, is very much a good delivery or a good tactic employed when you have those big square boundaries. But it doesn't surprise me we haven't seen the straight Yorker so far, but certainly going to Adelaide, it's a bit of a no-brainer there. You nearly flip it the other way around and say, right, well, you hit me straight. If you can bang me down the ground for a straight 6, well played.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think, if a Haris Rauf in any other part of the world at that situation is thinking, I know I'm trying to get him to play on the side boundaries, but anywhere else maybe he's going for a wide Yorker. It plays into the bowler's minds, I'm guessing.
100%. I think it's no-brainer, honestly, when you look at the dimensions of the ground there. And those are considerably shorter side boundaries than I think even normal, right? I think even in India, you probably get pretty much the same size, if not slightly bigger.
All right, let's take our next trend and pattern developed. Looks like things might change as we get Adelaide into the picture too. There are 6 to 7 games now at the Adelaide Oval, so keep an eye out for developing and changing trends. But one thing that looks likely to stay true is the advantage batting first, or at least an advantage that's either given to you if you are the team that wins the toss and decides to bowl. It's been better than any other tournament, and it's in stark contrast to what we saw in the 2021 edition in the UAE. It was just lopsided in terms of teams chasing. I wonder if that's in any way upset teams, Tom, while you could say, in Australia it'll be a lot easier, it'll be a lot more balanced, bat first, bat second, where the teams still would have thought chasing's the way to go, and somewhere that's upset a few batting lineups?
It surprises me, that stat, but then again, there are a number of stats that do surprise me. But yeah, I would have thought it'd be the other way around, purely because bigger grounds, you can, they're a lot harder to defend from a fielding captain's point of view when you've got those big pockets. But what we have seen is a lot of teams, I don't think, bat very well tactically on these big grounds. So I think that's the real standout with regards to that particular statistic.
Flem, if you'd like to just weigh in on that, have teams let us down with the quality of batting? You surprised with the advantage to teams batting first?
Well, a little, but I think they've adapted the old Australian adage where 9 out of 10 times you look at the track and you bat first, and the 10th time you have a discussion bat. So they've just adopted that. They've looked at the past history of Tom and his mates and decided to go with that. But it is a little bit surprising. Will it continue? I'm not sure. It's a small sample, but it's big enough to take note of and to be interested in towards the end. I still believe that having a certainty in an uncertain game by means of chasing and knowing your score and managing your risk gives you an advantage in this format.
Well, you also have to consider the fact that they're playing at the early part of the summer, so there's still a little bit of a little bit of that spring left in there. So, and also a lot of these teams coming from the subcontinent and other parts of the world don't play in grounds this big. So there's a certain template that's been followed for chasing down games, right? And here you got to be a little more wise about it. Run your twos well. Make sure you pick those pockets that are empty and score boundaries there. And I think a lot of teams have gone to scoring those big runs as quickly as possible. The approach in the first 6 overs, especially batting second, has been very, very different. It's not about accumulating and then kind of setting up a platform, then building from there. It's been let's get a quick 50 in the first 6, and we've seen that's not necessarily been possible. Even on a day like yesterday, where England were batting, they got 48 of six overs after Hales went through the kitchen sink at it in the first 6 overs. So there's a certain pattern that you need to find here, especially in these conditions. And I think when you find that and then you work around that, you probably your rate of success will probably be a lot more when you're batting second.
Do you sense teams tend to pick off of what's happening? They might have gone into the tournament saying, yeah, we chase, we love chasing, then seen few chases gone wrong, even though at times we say, oh, Zimbabwe, no way should Pakistan have not chased that score. Or Zimbabwe could have beaten Bangladesh. There are some games that are perhaps contextual here, but teams then start saying, looking at the trends, all right, now let's move it and let's bat first.
The most important thing is what you're doing yourself and what really suits your strength. Some sides have that feeling that we like to chase, and we're comfortable. We've got a couple of key players that just lap that up. India. Look at India, for example. Kohli, one of the greatest chasers of all time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why would you bat first when you've got someone like that? So there's other teams that have got that feeling around their defensive bowling as well. They think. Certainly, my time at Sunrisers, there's been a few years that we feel very comfortable defending because we felt we had an attack that, we could defend 120. So it really depends on that, depends on the conditions also that are presented on the day. So there's a number of different parameters that you need to consider, not just what's happening in the trend or what another team's doing. So I think it does depend on your own situation.
All right, let's take our next trend and pattern, and this may not be as much about finger spinners versus wrist spinners in this World Cup, but finger spinners have certainly been brought back into the game in comparison to previous World Cups. We almost thought teams were abandoning the finger spinners and only packing their team with wrist spin options. India have preferred an R. Ashwin as a lone spinner, albeit at Perth, and not even given Yuzvendra Chahal a game. But Flem, is that just down to boundaries again? Is there a craft that's been rediscovered by finger spinners and they become relevant again in T20s?
Well, wrist spin in Australia is about pace, the pace and the length that you bowl. If you go too high in Australia, you run the risk of getting hit straight down the ground. So the great Shane Warne was a little bit flatter, back of a length, and get you again still hitting square. There's not a huge amount on offer as you'd expect with these predominantly new tracks, but we're starting to see with a little bit of age, a little bit of turn. What the finger spinner has is like Mitch Satner yesterday with the ability to Hales is just to make that late adjustment and just drag them wide. They can also bowl a little bit flatter into the wicket, which creates the side boundaries as being a bit of a weapon. So they're the key things for me, but still a good leg spinner will part. You saw Sodhi have a goal yesterday. It's Rashid's always go. It's about what sort of bowler you've got, but the loopy leg spinner hitting down the ground is not a good recipe.
Right, Robbie, thoughts on this?
For me, I think it also plays in the back of the batsman's mind. The batter's always thinking, okay, these are big grounds. What I'm generally used to doing is going across the line, perhaps. I can speak for the subcontinent players. They're like, okay, let's go country, let's go, sweep shot, switch hit. But all of those shots, you're not going to get too much out of them. And if you don't hit them well, you're putting yourself in trouble there. So that's also playing in the back of the minds, which also gives the spinners that much more confidence. Like, okay, you hit me downtown, I'll just hit back over length, and then, and so on the other end of the spectrum, you can see there could be a few batsmen who are thinking, you know what, spinner's on, easiest guy to hit for 4s and 6s. I'll look to hit him straight down the ground, and he'll try and step out. And both these informations the bowler has already. Like, okay, there are only two ways where the batsman can take me down. One is either he'll try and take me down this way, square of the boundary, and again, margin of error is a lot bigger for me, so I'll take that chance. So I'll try and hit back of a length, or he'll try and take me down straight. So on both occasions, back of a length is a better option for me. So he'll try and delay it a little bit. Vary the pace as well here. The spinners can actually bowl slower through the air, still pitch it back of a length. And with the bounce that's available here, they're always in the game.
Yeah, Tom?
Yeah, that last word, bounce, is the key. That's why I think finger spinners are having probably a better time of it in this World Cup. We've seen the pitches. We all talk about pace bowlers getting bounce and carry and, their quick wickets, but it has brought some life to finger spin because they rely on bounce. They don't rely on big turn because they can't really, get the same sort of turn as a wrist spinner. So it's the bounce and the variation of pace, which someone like a Santner, for instance, has done very clever in a very clever way.
Do you also sense somewhere, this may not come through numbers perhaps, but more finger spinners tend to be all-rounders and therefore tend to play more, barring, I think, Adam Zampa and Ish Sodhi. There are not a lot of wrist spinners that are playing purely on the basis of their wrist spin. Shadab Khan, you could make an argument, but Shadab Khan adds a lot as an all-rounder. Is somewhere teams more comfortable playing the spinner who can bat in these conditions, Tom?
Well, it's an interesting theory. I haven't thought about it that way. Initially, I'd be saying no to that. Yeah. I think what we just have, we see at the moment, we see a greater collection of all-rounders that are finger spinners than we do all-rounders that bowl wrist spin. Yep. So I think that's probably the reason why. Yep.
And cricket's also evolving, right? It's not like a one-skill game anymore. You want to have a couple of skills up your sleeve, and that gives you a better chance to play a lot more games as well. So if you're a bowler, you need to be able to bat a little bit as well.
I think the other thing it highlights is that how hard the skill is of bowling wrist spin. Yeah. It's a bit like you don't see too many all-rounders that bowl 150. That's a specialist skill. Yeah. So, it's an easier second string to your bow to have. Yeah.
Flem, anything to add to that? Otherwise, I'll move on.
No, it's good. I'm thinking as they talk about the pace now that leg spinners are bowling, there's certainly the trend is to get flat and get that extra bit of bounce if you can. Early on, it was just bowl leg spin, but now it's become quite specific. The bowlers that are a bit taller and bowl a bit faster, and just keep in mind, you only have to turn it enough to hit the inside edge or the outside edge. They're the ones that are getting success with the court and the boundaries. So it's not just a skill, but it's now the evolution of that skill. And at the moment, what's hot is still leg spin, but you don't have to do as much as what a traditional leg spinner would do with flight and guile.
All right, let's take our next trend. This is interesting too. We've got two opening batters on our show, so should make for a good chat. It's not been a happy tournament for your opening batters. You look at the percentage of runs that the opening batters tend to contribute to their teams in T20 World Cups, and this edition stands at the lowest. So 15.4%, it's almost 2% lesser than what we saw in the UAE last year. And before this, it was only the 2010 edition in the Caribbean that saw such a tough time for openers, right? Let's put it to the openers then. Comes back to a similar point that we're trying to make, but openers just haven't figured out the gears to go at, or is it really that hard to bat when the ball's new in Australia?
Well, I think the conditions also play a little part, but having said that, I feel that it's up to the batters to kind of control that because it's within their control. It's just about changing a mindset a little bit, moving it to looking to rotate strike initially, setting up a base, giving yourself a little bit of time to get in, understand the conditions, the wickets, your opportunities based on those aspects. I think those are things that a lot of the opening batters aren't doing. We saw Joss Buttler doing that yesterday, where he gave himself a little bit of time, got in, and then played true to his blueprint. But we haven't seen a lot of batters at the top of the order doing that actually.
Tom?
Yeah, I think, again, it's to do with the pace and bounce of these surfaces. Hard new ball. We've seen a little bit of swing, not alarming swing, but a little bit of swing. And I think a lot of the players at the top of the order have still gone hard at the ball and not been prepared to invest up front to cash in down the back.
Flem, somewhere does that still surprise you, looking at the quality of batters that teams put at 1 and 2? We've spoken so much about KL Rahul, Rohit Sharma, Babar and Rizwan have been off colour. Joss Buttler before yesterday, 2 poor scores. David Warner's had 3 poor scores. I'm just trying to think of why these numbers are the way they are in spite of the quality of personnel at the top of the order.
Yeah, there's a couple of questions. First one, I'm surprised you went to Tom before you came to me talking about opening batting, so you can add that one to the list as well. So there's a lot going on. Look, the other thing is that they are playing on different surfaces. You think about Perth to Sydney to Melbourne, where there's all subtle differences, and it's just enough, I think, to put the rhythm of batsmen out, the opening batsman out. So Buttler taking a little bit more time in Brisbane is a perfect game plan. Even Finn Allen get a couple of cheap ones after a good knockout at Sydney. Is the first 2 overs. We heard Faf du Plessis the other day say, give the first 2 overs to the bowler, get all the information, and then work out what I can do. If there's a loose ball in those 12 deliveries, then I'll put it away. But I'm gathering information and trying to work out the pace of the pitch, and that then will be able to feed back to the rest of the team. And that's really important. Sometimes opening batsmen think it's all on me to get it going and get it started without that information, and that then is just swinging blindly. And we've seen a little bit of that. The players have just assumed that it's going to be a good surface. Australian conditions look good. They always look good. The colour of it's pretty good. Over here, it can be like a sheep's paddock. It's pretty green and doesn't do much. But in Australia, you get a beautiful visual, but it can be a little bit deceptive. And I think that subtlety has just caught a few batsmen out so far.
All right, maybe I could lead into one final trend and pattern and continue with Fleming, go to him first. But this is again about the power play not being as productive, an average of just over 21. Again, this is the least economy rate and average across the last 5 editions. You want to carry on that point, Flem, that one thing if the ball's doing a bit in the first 2 or 3 overs, normally teams tend to give themselves 3 overs or 2 overs to watch and then they go hard, but it's not like power plays are finishing on a bang. I'd be interested to see what overs 5 and 6 are yielding on an average, but it's not like they're taking the game away towards the end of the power play or maximizing it.
No, it's learning, and you just learnt there to come straight back to me with a batting question. So that's the sort of thing. It's learning with our past experiences. So well done, Ronnie. It's just feeding into that. It's just that there is a little bit on offer. There's enough there, and the batsmen maybe just have to give it a little bit of time in that first 6 overs before they really set their sights on what score it can be. Maybe the big grounds think, well, hey, I've got to make the most of the first 6 overs, but there's maybe a little bit of adrenaline. There's a little bit of hype, certainly with the World Cup, but that intent between reckless and being positive is always a fine line to walk, and at the moment the bowlers are dominating that.
Should we just send him home?
He's already home, mate.
Or whatever, like just send him off. Like just log him off. Yeah.
Well, I'm worried I'm going to cut out. My internet's going to cut out, so I've got to throw shots all over the place in case I fade out.
I can't believe it stayed that good for those two. But anyway, if you want to just quickly wrap that point up, though.
So for me, I think it's I think he's been bang on with his points, and I feel like in these conditions in Australia, given how the ball's doing a bit in the first 6 overs, I think you'd be overachieving if setting a too high a goal. If you're looking for anything above 50, you want to be a little bit more circumspect. So even if you look to get 40, you might end up with 45, 50. But if you look to overachieve, sometimes you'll just, you'll probably go a little too hard too early and lose a couple of wickets and then just peg you back. So I think it's wiser, and we've seen, I think, when teams have given themselves a little bit more time, they've gotten a sedate start, and you can't look to get 60 here in Australia in these conditions. It would be unwise, in my opinion, to look to get 60 in the first 6 overs, and I don't think anyone's gotten that much so far in the World Cup.
Tom?
Oh, look, I'd just much rather leave it to the experts in New Zealand. They clearly know what they're talking about.
Good boy, Tom.
I'm just way out of my depth. Having never batted in the top order.
But I was going to actually come to this before I wrap it up. That have teams been too almost conventional, right? We asked some questions pre-tournament to all of you about whether we're likely to see batters retired out or maybe a pinch hitter thrown up there. We haven't seen anybody run out of the non-strikers, and I'm just looking for some drama perhaps. But would it be wise at all to throw in somebody at the top, break up some of those top order batters which teams seem to be losing very quickly together? So.
Personally, I'd rather see the top order batters, learn from what's happened and make the adjustment than throwing someone else out there that's not as well equipped to take on and trying to take the game away. Because if top order quality player is having their issues negotiating the extra pace and bounce, I can't see your conventional pinch hitter that's normally listed at 8 or 9 coming out and doing anything different.
You go with that? Sometimes you think bowlers tend to bowl differently to those sorts of batters?
No, so the thing is, say if you're a top order batsman, it's a short tournament as well, right, in that sense. So if your top orders don't come off and then you throw someone in there and then they don't come off, it just leaves a bad taste in the mouth eventually, and then it's just nobody feels good about themselves, and it's such a short tournament, you want to make sure that everyone's getting enough of an opportunity wherever they play.
All right. You got anything to add, Wisecrack?
No, that was perfect. Both were
okay. Awesome. Awesome. No, I got to love Stephen Fleming. Was he like this as coach?
No.
I've never seen that. That's all I've seen of him. That's why I keep getting him back.
All my time with him, he was like this.
Oh.
You can't get a joke out of him.
Oh my God, it's a joker line. Every now and then they're funny as well. Anyway, we leave it there. Thank you very much to Stephen Fleming and Tom Moody and Robin Uthappa. We're going to be back for chit-chat on the Zimbabwe-Netherlands game at the completion of the first innings. Join us then for Maruti Suzuki Presents ESPN Cricinfo T20 Timeout. Before I leave you though, here is the Cricinfoverse with Grand Vitara. Head over to the ESPN Cricinfo app where you could build your own avatar, take a virtual tour of the Cricinfo studios and also have a look at the all-new Grand Vitara by Maruti Suzuki. So get going, that's on your home screen, top right of the home screen. So go check it out. And do join us at the end of the first innings for Maruti Suzuki Presents ESPN Cricinfo T20 Timeout.